We continue our discussion of contractual agreements, and we're specifically discussing the offer portion of the agreement. And we talked in our prior discussion about the characteristics of the offer and how there has to be a serious objective intention to be bound, reasonably certain terms, and it has to be communicated to the offeree. We spent some time talking about what it meant to have a serious objective intent to be bound, and now we're going to talk a little bit about definiteness. There are four qualities to definiteness, right? And all of them are, four elements, I guess, of definiteness. All of them are centered around providing a way that the court can understand what the parties intended in the event that it has to resolve a breach. One, the parties have to be identified. We have to know whom the contracting entities are because they're the ones who are bound, right? How do you have evidence of this contract if we don't know who the parties are? Second, the subject matter of the contract, if it's goods or services being provided, work to be performed, right? We have to have a subject matter. Third, we have to have consideration to be paid or exchanged, right? And fourth, we have to have time of payment, delivery, or performance, right? And just because these terms may be variable within the offer doesn't mean that they're not definite. Let's give you an example. Nintendo offers to sell your video game shop Nintendo video game systems for $75 each for resale, right? You may agree to purchase anywhere from between 1 and 25 units of this gaming system. The fact that the number is not certain, meaning it's not a specific number, I'm not saying you can buy 15, it's an offer of 15, it's an offer for anywhere between 1 and 25, right? The number is definite enough for that to be an offer, and if they're extending the power for you to accept by simply returning the form and saying, hey, I'll take 10, then that is a bona fide offer and it is definite enough. And the next element is communication to the offeree. Communication to the offeree. This means a couple of things. The offer has to actually physically be communicated to the offeree, and the offer has to be directed toward the offeree, right? So here's an example. Tolson advertises a reward for the return of her lost cat. Dirk, not knowing of the reward, finds the cat and returns it to Tolson. Ordinarily, Dirk cannot recover the reward because an essential element of a reward contract, which is a unilateral contract, is that the one who claims the reward must have known that it was offered, right? A few states would provide an exception here to the extent she published the offer to the public, right? But not on contract principles, right? So if he had known of the reward, right, and then responded to it, then his response would basically be performance under a unilateral contract. Elsewise, it's not. The other thing is that if I offer a reward to Tommy, Tommy can't then pass on to Dirk the ability to accept that offer by returning the cat, right? It has to be Tommy who returns the cat if the offer was directed specifically to Tommy and not to Dirk, right? So this brings us to the termination of the offer. And there are a number of ways in which an offer can be terminated by an offeror, right? Or just an offeror or under other circumstances, right? The first is termination by the offeror. And so when we have an offeror that terminates an offer, that's known as a revocation, right? And most offers are fully revocable up to the point at which the offeree accepts. If the power of acceptance is the power to bind the offeror, then logically, after the offeree accepts the offer, there is no longer a power to revoke the offer because at that point, the offeror is bound by the terms, right? So unless the offer is irrevocable, right, the offeror can revoke the offer even if they promise to keep it open, right, as long as the revocation is communicated to the offeree before the offeree accepts it. So even if I hold it open, right, there are some exceptions. There are some offers that can be made irrevocable. The revocation can be accomplished if as the offeror simply repudiate the offer. That's I no longer want to sell my X, right? Whatever X is. Then it's effectively revoked. Or by other behavior that's inconsistent with the offer. So if I offer to sell you X, but then I sell X to someone else, that is inconsistent with having made you that offer, right? So Misha offers to sell some land to Gary. A month passes, and Gary, who has not accepted the offer, learns that Misha has sold the property to Liam. Because Misha's sale of the land to Liam is inconsistent with the continued existence of the offer to Gary, Gary is effectively has had his offer revoked. The revocation becomes effective when the offeree or the offeree's agent, which we'll not get to this semester, but it's simply someone who's working on behalf of the offeree, when it's communicated to them, when they receive it. So a statement of revocation sent via mail, right, and delivered, a few days later becomes effective when the offeree receives it. So that's termination by the offeror. We also need to look at termination by the offeree. The offeree has the power of acceptance. They also, like the prettiest girl at the dance, have the power of rejection, right? And what that means is that at the time that the offeree rejects the offer, they lose the power of acceptance. That's an important point, right? Because the receipt of the offer places in the offeree's hand the power to bind the person who's made the offer, right? Flip side of that is that they lose that power at the point that they reject the offer. There are a couple of ways that they can reject the offer. Certainly any objective manifestation of not moving forward with that offer would be sufficient. But once they do so, any subsequent attempt by the offeree to accept the offer will be considered a new offer, often called a counteroffer. So now this places the offeror, right, who had originally given that power of acceptance to the offeree, places them in the position of the offeree, and now they have the power to bind the person to whom they originally made their offer, because that person is now the offeror, giving the original offeror, who is now the offeree, the power of acceptance. Yes, enjoyed that word salad. Putting that together. All right, so if I simultaneously reject the offer and say, I don't want to pay that much for it, and I say I will pay $50 less, then what I've done is I rejected that offer and I've instantaneously come back with a counteroffer. It's separate, offer. It's concerning the same subject matter, but the power of acceptance has shifted from myself, who was the original offeree, and then it's shifted back to the person who originally made that offer. All right. There are some factual kind of things that we need to keep under consideration. So if I made an offer, right, and I am mulling it over and I'm within a reasonable amount of time, and I go back to the person who has made me the offer and I say, hey, I have some questions about this. What is it that you're really asking? Can you clarify the terms a little bit? Can you give me more information? Those are known as inquiries about an offer. And so an inquiry about an offer is not a revocation, not a rejection of that offer by the offeree, right? You can make inquiries about the offer without losing your power to bind the offeror. However, once you propose a different deal, right, in a material way, you have made a counteroffer, which is effectively a rejection. So Burke offers to sell his home to Lang for $270,000. Lying responds, your price is too high. I'll offer to purchase your home for $250. Lying's response is a counteroffer because it rejects Bert's offer to sell at $270 and creates a new offer by Lying to purchase the home at the price of $250,000. Next, we know that offers can terminate by operation of law, and those circumstances include simply the lapse of a reasonable amount of time or a statutory amount of time in certain cases, destruction of the subject matter of the offer. For example, I offer to sell you a car, the car blows up, that offer automatically terminates. Death or incompetence of the offeror or the offeree. So if I offer to sell you my business and then I am adjudicated, let's say I'm becoming, I'm losing my facilities, right? And I have a guardian appointed, I have Alzheimer's, right? I would not be able to go through with that offer. That offer would terminate, and you'd have to negotiate with the guardian in order to fulfill that contract. Also, in the event that the contract, the aims of the contract become illegal, then the offer terminates, right? So if the law were to change in the intervening period, after I make the offer, right, then that offer I wouldn't have to withdraw it. It would simply go away, all right? Under each of those circumstances, an offer may terminate, but again, some offers might in fact become irrevocable. Some offers are irrevocable, some can be made irrevocable, and courts increasingly refuse to allow an offeror to revoke an offer when the offeree has changed position. We call this detrimental reliance, right? And a justifiable detrimental reliance upon the promise that was made. This may be a case of what's known as promissory estoppel, right? So, in that case, and promissory estoppel doesn't necessarily require the acceptance to actually occur, right? So the contract doesn't actually have to be fully formed in order for promissory estoppel to apply. But the offer is irrevocable because of the detrimental reliance. And I don't want that to be too confusing. Let's say that we have to, I'm trying to sell a car, I'm trying to sell a classic car, right? I want $43,000 for my classic Mustang, right? And in order to raise the money, you have to go to several sources, right? And you have to take out a loan. You think you can flip this car for more money if you fix it up, so you want to think of it as an investment. So you take out several loans and you put yourself in a position, a less favorable position, right? I change my opinion about whether I want to sell the car or not. Oh, I want to fix it up myself. I could probably make more money if I did it that way. Your detrimental reliance might result in my offer not being revocable anymore, right? And if I don't fall through with it, I may be subject to censure under promissory estoppel principles, right? Another type of irrevocable offer is what's known is actually a contract. It's called an option. An option contract is the right to buy a certain thing or to obtain a certain service at a certain price by a certain date. At a certain price. And it's created when an offeror promises to hold an offer open for a specified period of time in return for consideration, generally a payment, right? So if I say, I want to sell my classic Mustang, $43,000, you say, I'd like to see if I can work out a deal for that. So here, I'd like you to hold out that offer. I'll give you $100 to hold that offer just for me for 2 weeks or 3 weeks while I try to work a deal out, right? That, well, it's not $100. Let's say it's $10, right? So I'll take that $10. That $10 is sufficient to make that offer irrevocable. And that's a case where even though normally I could take that offer back at any time, right? No matter what you were doing, right? Generally speaking, unless you detrimentally relied and you qualify for promissory estoppel. In this case, you don't have to worry about that because you purchased an option. That option is yours to do with as you choose. If you want to sell the option for $50,000, right? Give me the 43, keep the remainder, and pass the car on to your buyer, right? You're fully within your rights to do so. That's what the option contract is for. All right. So we're going to move on to acceptance in our next segment. But until then, please begin looking at please look at the prompt and respond to the prompt in the space provided below. Thank you.